Good, happy Sunday morning and happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. I'm Riley King and welcome to the Riley King Newscast right here on the Riley King Network. Let's begin. History of St. Patrick's Day. Let's take a look at this video from National Geographic. Okay, and there you go on that video. Information about St. Patrick's Day. Celebrations to mark St. Patrick's Day across Boston. Let's take a listen to the video from NECN and NBC Boston.
It is a full day of festivities on tap for all you folks, because everybody's a little Irish today.
Yeah, I would say so.
We're talking about the traditional breakfast, and then there's a road race, and of course, the parade.
Yeah, that parade's at 1 o'clock. Our Nia Ham is already live in South Boston with what you need to know. Nia, nobody out there just yet, right?
No, not just yet, Jeff, but they will be soon enough. So one of the things we wanted to let you know is that street closures and parking restrictions will be in full effect today. Word of caution, do not drive into South Boston if you do not have to. The city is urging people not to drive their cars. Parking enforcement will be out towing cars in restricted areas today. So make alternative arrangements, one of them being the Blue Bike Regional Bike Share Program. That's one way. And of course, there's also public transportation. Now, the parade route itself will be closed to traffic from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Organizers of today's St. Patrick's Day Parade, they have really put a lot of work into this, as well as the planning of the parade route. Now, that kicks off at 1 p.m. on West Broadway at the Broadway MBTA station. It'll make its way down East Boston onto a number of streets connected to Broadway and eventually in on Dorchester Avenue. Now, organizers are expecting to see scores of people from all over, and of course, with any event of this size, it's always safety first.
still dress for the occasion. Be careful, be safe, be vigilant. If you see something, say something. It's a large crowd down there. It's 1 million people plus that we're looking at on the streets tomorrow. But just have a great day. And the most important thing, be safe.
Okay, also happening today, the South Boston Boys and Girls Club Road Race. That kicks off today at 11 a.m. on West 6th Street. So for a full list of parking restrictions and street closures, head over to NBCBoston.com, and you can find all of that information there. Live here in South Boston, Nia Ham, NBC 10 Boston.
Nia, thank you. We do have a big day ahead on our sister station, NECN. You can join us for all the political jabs, the Irish music at the St. Patrick's Day breakfast. Then keep it locked in for the South Boston Parade, as Nia just mentioned. All the coverage begins at 10 on NECN.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And if you are going to the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Boston, or if you are doing anything St. Patrick's Day events today, share photos with us to the Riley King Network Facebook page. We want to see them. Chad Battle of Badges Hockey Championship raises more than $278,000. Let's take a listen to the video from WMUR News 9, Jess Moran.
SNHU Arena filled with thousands of supporters cheering on Team Fire and Team Police as they raise money for Children's Hospital at Dartmouth-Hitchcock.
I'm very proud of my son, as I am of all the police officers and the fire department and all the first responders who put their life on the line every day.
There's no better event for police and fire to come together and collaborate to raise money for such a great cause.
In the last 12 years, the event has raised a total of $2.5 million.
Dartmouth-Hitchcock is right in my area where I work, and to do something like play in a hockey game like this, raising money for the Children's Hospital, it's a win-win for everyone involved.
To be on a team, the players have to collect at least $1,500, and they are paired with a Chad buddy. That experience goes beyond the ice for Lieutenant Dan Connolly and his buddy Ben.
It's kind of cool because he's the same age as my son Jack, and they've become friends, so they enjoy coming to the game, and they'll meet up and spend the whole game together.
One of the biggest celebrities at the game was Elliot Perry, Chad Kidd, and occasional WMUR reporter.
It's fire versus police, and as you see behind me, you have the game going on. It looks like it's 3-4, so this is live tonight's broadcast. WMUR News 9, Elliot Perry.
That is certainly a tough act to follow. Elliot stealing our hearts and probably one day my job in Manchester. Just wearing WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Second Alton person dies after shooting Friday. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Tim Callery.
According to the New Hampshire Attorney General's office, a second person has died after being shot at an Alton home on Friday, in a case in which an 11-year-old is facing charges.
James Eckert was pronounced dead late Friday night.
An autopsy on James Eckert is scheduled for Monday morning. 50-year-old Lizette Eckert was also killed in the shooting on Dobbins Way.
The chief medical examiner, Dr. Jenny Duval, determined that the manner of death was homicide, and the cause of Miss Eckert's death was a single gunshot wound to the head.
The 11-year-old was charged Friday with 1 count of reckless second-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. Right now, the child is still facing those same charges, but that could change.
Certainly that's something we'll have to consider, but not something I can comment on specifically at this point.
But it's an incredible tragedy to lose them both right now.
Reverend Sam Hollow knew James Eckhart well.
Jim was a good guy. I knew him well. Many of our people knew him very well. A couple of our parishioners were his best friends. And if I would say anything, I just respected him so much.
Reverend Hollow says the two deaths have sent shockwaves throughout this tight-knit community.
We all know one another, and we feel it perhaps more than you might in a larger community where another one happened. This is very rare.
He opened his church to mourners on Saturday and will dedicate Sunday services to James and Lizette.
I invite anybody who'd like to come to join us and ask God to take something as horrible as this and turn it for good, which he can do.
Now, the Attorney General's office is stressing that this is very much an ongoing investigation. They say anyone with any information is asked to give them a call. Reporting live here in Alton, I'm Tim Callery, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Juvenile suffers non-life-threatening injuries in Manchester stabbing. A juvenile suffered non-life-threatening injuries in a stabbing in Manchester on Saturday afternoon, police said. The stabbing was reported in the area of Lincoln and Hanover Streets at 3:35 p.m., Manchester police said in a press release. The juvenile was taken to a hospital for treatment. No further details were released. Anyone with information is asked to call Manchester Police at 603-668-8711. Mud closes road in New Boston. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9.
Vehicles struggle through the mud on Beard Road in New Boston.
I was shaking. I went downstairs and cried. I was like, I can't keep doing this.
Jessica LeMay says she almost didn't make it. Her car isn't just covered in mud, a piece also broke off in the process. Neighbors are frustrated with the highway department.
They never prepare for it. We always have issues on the road. Last year my wife was stuck multiple times. I had to go push her and kind of get things thrown into the car to get a traction, and it's the same thing this year again.
According to police, the highway department addressed as many dirt roads as it could on Friday, but ran out of material.
I just don't know how they determine which roads take priority over others, because this is a pretty highly residential road.
Police say the highway department expects another shipment of materials to arrive Monday.
You just call up an aggregate supplier and go get it. People can work on Saturdays. It's not a big deal.
Neighbors say the road needs to be better maintained.
I pay the same amount of taxes as a person in this town that lives on a paved road. So if you're going to upkeep the dirt road, I'm good with that. But as soon as you don't upkeep the road, it's just a hard sell for me.
Now, there is a selectmen's meeting this Monday evening at 6 o'clock where people are expected to turn out and voice their concerns. We could not reach anyone at the highway department for comment today. We're live in New Boston. Siobhan Lopez, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Death of man shot Thursday in Manchester is ruled a homicide. Let's take a listen to the video from WMUR News 9.
Authorities say the call came in about 3 o'clock this morning.
for a shooting in the 200 block of Sagamore Street.
Officers arrived on scene. There was a male victim who had suffered a gunshot wound who died as a result of his injuries. In addition, there was another male individual on scene who had suffered a non-life-threatening injury.
Sheila Lemos says her dog woke her up early this morning.
I could hear yelling under my bedroom window. Somebody was yelling, I've been stabbed, I'm bleeding, my ribs, my back, over and over.
Officials say they don't think there is any danger to the public, but are not releasing many details about the investigation.
No one's under arrest at this point. The investigation's ongoing. We've identified all the parties and believe this was an isolated incident so that there is no general threat to the public.
Liza Manor lives in the area and says this is a great neighborhood.
It's unfortunate, but it doesn't scare me because I love living here, and it's a one-time incident.
I'm surprised. This has never been that kind of a neighborhood where you'd expect something like that.
The body of the person who was shot was taken from the scene about 2 hours ago. Officials have not released the identities of either person who was involved. Reporting live in Manchester, I'm Andy Hirschberger, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video from WMUR News 9, Andy Hirschberger. And we have learned the death of a man that was shot early Thursday morning in Manchester has been ruled a homicide. Kevin Deanbow, 37 of Manchester, died of a gunshot wound to the chest, the State Attorney General's office announced Saturday. Police were called to the shooting in the area of 219 Sagamore Street about 3 a.m. Thursday. A second man suffered what appeared to be non-life-threatening stab wounds, officials previously said. Officials are asking anyone with information to contact Manchester Police at 603-792-5545. Fox News host Gina Pereira pulled off air after network condemnation. Let's take a listen to that video from ABC News.
Ilhan Omar became one of the first 2 Muslim women ever elected to Congress, one of the new faces of the Democratic House majority. But with that spotlight has come intense scrutiny, as comments by Omar about Israel in recent weeks have been perceived as anti-Semitic, sparking a debate dividing the Democratic Party over what constitutes anti-Semitism and what is legitimate political speech.
Congresswoman, Speaker Pelosi says it's up to you if you want to explain your comments at all.
It started with a February tweet in response to a story about the House Republican leader threatening action over Omar's criticism of Israel. It's all about the Benjamins, baby, she declared. She soon apologized for using age-old stereotypes of Jews using money to buy influence. But then, more controversy after Omar questioned the loyalties of American Jews who support pro-Israel lobbying groups.
I want to talk about the political influence in this country that says it is okay for people to push for allegiance to a foreign country.
Her fellow Democrats reacting harshly, including freshman Congresswoman Elaine Luria, who is Jewish and a Navy veteran.
When I entered the United States Naval Academy, I first took the oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Is that not enough to prove my loyalty to our nation?
Democratic Minnesota State Senator Ron Latz told NPR he talked to Omar about how she should discuss Israel even before she was elected.
Unfortunately, she keeps repeating the mistakes. So I'm troubled by what appears to be a pattern reflecting an attitude, at least toward Israel, if not toward Jews.
But Omar's defenders say she is facing unfair scrutiny.
I just want to make sure that we are protecting also the right for the first Muslim woman to be in Congress and to question legitimately foreign policy towards Israel.
Omar herself has been the target of intolerance. Just last week, this poster in the West Virginia Capitol at a GOP day connected Omar to the 9/11 terrorist attacks.
The motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
The debate over Omar's words sparking a House resolution this week, but broadened to condemn not just anti-Semitism, but also Islamophobia and white supremacy.
That resolution passed the House unanimously among Democrats with just 23 no votes from Republicans who said Omar should have been directly named in the resolution. Let's bring in the round.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And also we have learned that Fox News host Gina Pereira was yanked off the air Friday night, a week after she ignited controversy and earned a rare condemnation from her network over comments about Democratic Rep. Ilhan Omar. And now let's take a look and see what type of events are happening today in New Hampshire. Charming Fair Farms Maple Express, 10:30 a.m. in Candia, New Hampshire. Spring Awakening, still life image on Squam Lake at 1 p.m. in Holderness, New Hampshire. Open Paint at 12 p.m. in Bedford, New Hampshire. Volunteer LRCT and SLA Trail Work Day at 9 o'clock a.m. in Holderness, New Hampshire. And Kids St. Patrick's Day Party with a Minion Jam Time at 10 o'clock a.m. New Hampshire Maple Month Weekend number 2, various New Hampshire sugar houses at 10 o'clock a.m. Pot of Gold Spring Clean Out, Hansel and Gretel Antiques at 10 o'clock a.m. Friends Annual Book Sale at Nashua Public Library at 1 o'clock p.m. And those are all the events happening today in New Hampshire. And that's it for the Riley King Newscast right here on the Riley King Network. I hope you all have a wonderful St. Patrick's Day and a wonderful rest of your Sunday. See you back here later on today for another newscast. And I'll have a news report coming up in a little bit. Goodbye, everyone.